Chapter 18. The Architecture of a Good Day. A good day is rarely the result of a good mood. It is usually the result of a good shape. People talk about focus as if it were an internal resource that either appears or fails to appear, like weather. They treat distraction as a personal weakness. They treat steadiness as a virtue that must be summoned from within. In reality, the day itself has architecture, and architecture produces behavior. The mind does not operate in a vacuum. It operates inside spaces, sequences, objects, interruptions, lighting, noise, digital channels, and social expectations. The quality of focus you experience is often the product of these conditions, far more than the product of your will. This is not comforting, it is liberating. If focus were purely a moral quality, the only solution would be endless self-control. Yet self-control is the most expensive resource in the system. It is slow to replenish and easy to exhaust. A better approach is to recognize that the mind behaves predictably in predictable environments. Give it a shape that protects attention, and you require less heroism. Give it a shape that constantly provokes reaction, and you will spend the day fighting fires you lit by accident. The architecture of a good day begins before the day begins. Most people enter their day already scattered. They wake into a flood of information, messages, news, obligations, and other people's urgency. The mind is asked to respond before it has oriented. In that state, attention becomes reactive by default. It chases the loudest signal. It becomes dominated by whatever feels most pressing rather than what matters most. The person believes they are being responsible. They are often being captured. Capture is the opposite of choice. A good day, in the sense relevant here, is a day where choice remains available. Not choice in the abstract sense of freedom, but choice in the practical sense. The ability to direct attention deliberately rather than being dragged by stimulus. That ability is not only internal, it is supported or undermined by the arrangement of the day's surfaces. The mind cannot hold a stable orientation if the environment is constantly asking it to pivot. Pivoting feels like productivity in modern work culture, yet it is often the hidden source of fatigue. Every pivot has a cost. The cost is not just time, it is the residue of partial attention. When the mind is forced to switch contexts repeatedly, it leaves small pieces of itself behind. It carries open loops, it accumulates unresolved edges. It begins to feel pressured without knowing why. This pressure is often interpreted emotionally as anxiety or irritability, when it is sometimes just the nervous system's response to constant fragmentation. A good day is built to reduce unnecessary pivots. This reduction is not achieved by becoming rigid. It is achieved by being deliberate about what deserves immediate access and what does not. Many environments are built for responsiveness rather than for depth. They reward quick replies, constant availability, rapid switching. In such environments, the mind is trained to remain on the surface. The person becomes someone who can handle many small tasks but struggles to enter anything that requires sustained thought. This struggle is then framed as a personal limitation rather than as the predictable outcome of a system. Systems teach the nervous system what to expect. If your environment trains you to respond instantly, silence begins to feel wrong. If your environment trains you to check constantly, stillness begins to feel unsafe. If your environment trains you to chase updates, the absence of updates begins to feel like risk. These are not preferences, they are conditioned patterns. The architecture of a good day is a form of conditioning that you choose rather than inherit. It also acknowledges a harder truth. You cannot ask yourself to be steady all day in an environment designed to destabilize you. You can do it occasionally, you can force it for a while, but over time the environment wins because it is relentless. It applies pressure constantly in small ways. It rewards reactivity. It punishes absence. It encourages shallow attention. The steady worker does not accept this as inevitable. They treat the environment as part of the work. The environment is where much of the emotional interference is generated. Interference is not only internal emotion, it is also the emotion that arises when you are constantly interrupted, constantly behind, constantly switching, constantly feeling that you are failing to keep up. Many people live in an environment that produces anxiety and then blame themselves for being anxious. They live in an environment that produces irritability and then blame themselves for being irritable. They live in an environment that produces distraction and then call themselves undisciplined. The architecture is doing much of the work. Changing the architecture changes the emotion that arises within it. This is not a promise that life becomes easy. It is a recognition that many of the storms people fight are storms their environment keeps generating. If the day is shaped to reduce needless noise, the mind has less to recover from. It has fewer disturbances, fewer triggers, fewer forced pivots. It can devote more of its energy to execution rather than to repair. A good day, then, is less about feeling good and more about being protected. Protected from needless stimulation, protected from constant reactivity, protected from the subtle tyranny of other people's urgency. In that protection, the mind has a chance to do what it naturally does when it is not constantly provoked: settle, engage, build, and return. The shape of the day becomes a quiet discipline, one that makes steadiness more probable and emotional interference less frequent, not because you became a different person, but because you built a structure that let the person you already are operate with fewer unnecessary disruptions.